There was once a bright young woman named Kate, and Kate wanted to serve God, but she was in her final year of school, so she said, "When I finish my exams, then I will serve God." Well, she finished her exams and finished school and went to uni, but uni, of course, is harder than school is. So she said, "Well, when I finish uni, then I will serve God." She finished uni and got a job, but young grads, of course, are pushed hard to do long hours. So she said, "Well, maybe soon I'll be able to serve God." But life got busy. She met a nice man, got married and had kids. And then she was busy like she never knew before. And she said, "Well, when my children grow up a bit, then I will serve God." Her children did grow up, but then she was in senior leadership roles at work and quite busy. And she said, "Well, when I retire, then I will serve God." And she did retire, but her children had their children, and so she enjoyed being grandma and found herself busy enjoying the grandma life. She said, "Well, when the grandchildren grow up a bit and don't need me so much, then I will serve God." And her grandchildren did grow up. Her husband died, and eventually she moved into aged care and said, "When I get out of this nursing home, then I will serve God." There are, I think, two lessons we can learn from Kate's story. And the first is the one we hear in the gospel today, that the time is now to serve God, not later. There will always be a reason to say, "Oh yes, but not yet." But when that time comes, there'll be another reason again. So the time when we feel God might be speaking to us to do something is indeed now, and to start now, cultivating that generosity of heart of service. In the gospel today, we hear Jesus invite people to come and follow him, effectively to serve God. And we hear one man say, "Oh yes, but please let me bury my father first." And that might seem unnecessarily cruel that Jesus says, "No, let the dead bury their own dead, you come now." But what this man meant was not that my father died yesterday, the funeral is tomorrow, I'll see you on Tuesday. No, it meant, in Jewish idiom, bury my father meant do all my duties to my parents, which of course could have gone for decades. And so the time is now, when we feel like God is calling us, is to begin. There are many people in the Gospels who we hear Jesus say, "Come follow me," and they responded immediately. And we know their names: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Nathaniel. These are the great disciples who we hear responded immediately to Jesus' call. But the people like in the Gospel today who say, "Oh yes, I want to, but not quite yet," we don't know their names, because chances are they never came back, and their stories were not interwoven with the story of Jesus, where the good news was told and retold, eventually written down. There is another lesson, though, I think, to learn in Kate's story, which is one Kate herself was not even aware of, and that is that for so much of Kate's life, she actually was serving God. Because for most of us, most of our service of God will be in and through our vocations as spouses and parents, and to some extent also as children and brothers and sisters. It is in our love for our spouse, and particularly in our parenting, that most of our doing of God's will, of serving God through God's people, is done. And that's something I know that so many of you watching, of course, do so wonderfully. But notice I say most of our service is done through that, not all, because there is hopefully still room for a little bit more. We ask in our parish that everyone would be involved in one ministry of service each. And that might be a big or a small thing, but if each person does one thing, one ministry, then we each have a sense of contributing. We each have a sense that we are connected. We have a sense of ownership and engagement with our parish community. And the collective works of all our hands means that we as a church can do so much. We already do a lot, but there is always more we can do, and the things we can do better. If there are more people to welcome at our front doors, it means strangers will be greeted and drawn in. If we have more people serving morning teas and cooking barbecues, these simple actions of hospitality, it means more people will stay together and form relationships in the church. If we have more people able to teach scripture in our state schools, take communion to the sick, visit with St. Vincent de Paul, serve in the name of Christ through the refugee services to those who are vulnerable in Australia, and so many other things, up front and behind the scenes in church, then together we can do well. In our church, we talk about 5 pillars of our pastoral plan, which are 5 ways of discipleship, 5 ways of belonging. And those 5 ways are to connect to other people, to worship God, to grow in our faith, to give generously, and to serve. And so to serve is indeed one of our ways of living out our discipleship of Jesus. This weekend in the parish, we're asking everyone to sign up for a ministry. And if you're here at church on Sunday or you get our newsletter by subscription, you'll have received our volunteer form. It will be on our website shortly if you're not able to see that. So I invite you, find your way of service, big or small, in a way that's appropriate to you at your age and stage of life capacity right now. Maybe very small, but it be your contribution to the life of the parish, your way of serving God here and now.